Hello, today let's talk about yet another product created by FiiO, and this time it's FiiO M15S, so updated version of M15. Some time ago, actually if I remember right, it was 2019, M15 was FiiO's flagship and it holds that position pretty well. It was priced $1,300. It utilized the dual AK-4499 chips. It featured a great wooden box and a lot of other extra premium stuff. But since that time, FiiO transitioned to new Snapdragon 660 chipset, released a lot of new players, and of course now their flagship is M17. And actually they said that they are not going to release some updated version in foreseeable future. But they decided to change M15S positioning a little bit, so they reduced the price. At the same time they transitioned to new chipset and added a bunch of interesting features that I will show you and tell about. So you're getting a bit of extra new stuff and for less price. Of course it came with a few trade-offs, but anyway it's still a really good offer in this price segment. And what else need I say? Player uses Android 10, which disappoints some people, but actually for the digital audio player it's not an issue, because main applications like streaming services, players and so on, they currently usually requires something like Android 7, or like UAPP for example works on Android 5, so of course everyone would like to see much newer and more recent version, but unfortunately it doesn't work this way in the world of creating mobile devices. It's not like you can download some operation system and install it or something like that. And of course it's not a matter of like switching to another supplier instantly, because everything is really limited when you need to create a relatively small batch of devices. If you're going to create 100,000 devices, or like better 500,000 devices, of course you can get whatever you like, any chipset, any operation system and so on. But for more niche product like players are, you limited to what your supplier can offer, both in terms of chipset and in terms of firmware. So my point here is that Android 10 is not perfect, but still a really good viable option that will be enough for few next coming years. And anyway, in few years we still will get better players, better offers and so on. And maybe in few years we'll have some kind of sound transmission to our audio nerves directly. But still there will be people that won't be satisfied anyway. So enough talks, let's have a closer look. I will mention some specs later. But in general it's like all modern Android players features you'll get there: Bluetooth, Wi-Fi and so on. So let's go to the box contents inside. So I'm still glad to see the previous version of package here. Then goes cardboard box. No fancy wooden box this time, because it was pretty expensive in production and FiiO wanted to cut the cost. So actually, despite the inflation, lower cost with better sound and newer Android version is still a good thing to have. Underneath we're getting this clip to access the microSD card tray. Some papers here, probably what we've got in this envelope. So some manuals, quick start guide and so on. Not that interesting. More interesting stuff goes deeper. So here is one part and a second part. So let me pull these things out. And also we are getting USB cable, I suppose. So carefully, but sure. So we're getting USB Type-C cable, also USB Type-A to USB-C cable, and it's, as you can see, it's not the data cable, and it's just for the cooling fan, and we also getting USB Type-A to USB Type-C adapter for the main data and charging cable if you need one. So accessory set is pretty interesting, and what is this thing here we will talk in the next part, so I need to clean up the table. So let's talk about the design, but first let's have a look at the new design of the stand that comes with this player, and it's named DK3S, and now it's disassemblable, so you can store it in a really compact way if you don't need it, or like if you want to carry it somewhere. It's still much more compact than original DK. And when you need it, you just insert one piece of aluminum into another, and here it holds and works really well. You can put player here. If you're going to use it with ultra high power mode, you can use this active cooler, and here is the connection for powering this cooler, and 3 positions. Cooler is pretty quiet, so it's okay for usage somewhere on the desktop. But actually, despite all the jokes that appeared when we received the M17 with previous version of DK3, there were a lot of jokes like, oh, now we have a cooler for the player, what's next, like liquid cooling system or so. This cooler is not necessary unless you're using the most high power mode, high 5th level of game. Otherwise it won't be go that hot. But if you need to use that ultra high mode, you of course need to remove this case, and actually we need to do it too, because actually you see case is good, it's well stitched, looks pretty nice, and here is a protective flip for the volume control, but actually it's not really easy to rotate because it's protected by the case of the player itself. Maybe there is some probability that something will turn it, but I don't think it will be really likely, especially with case. But you can avoid this because now you're getting better solutions for that compared to the original M15. So FiiO used here Velcro. Probably they got feedback about the case for the M17, and right out of box I really enjoy this rear panel. I like this texture, I like this design, like it more than original M15's carbon. Also, FiiO changed the shape of buttons. They said that these buttons are more ergonomic. I don't know, so for me they are convenient and looks okay, but it's just a matter of taste here. So on the one side we have on-off button and 3 buttons for playback control, play pause and next previous track. And part of buttons FiiO moved to the other side. Firstly, they've added additional buttons to control the volume. You can select, do you like to use this potentiometer, or you'd like to use these 2 buttons. So you can get either more analog type of control or more digital. But actually result will be the same, because potentiometer used here, its value is read and feed it to the same volume control chip that is fed by that is controlled by these 2 buttons. Also you have hardware hold toggle that you can flip, and then it will disable buttons, turn off the screen and so on. And 1 extra button that you can select what will happen if you press it. There are some options. So as you can see, it holds really well in hand. It's not super thick, but of course pretty big, because it's 5.5 inches screen here. On the bottom we've got one slot for microSD cards, also it has 64 gigabytes of internal memory, and the USB slot. It can be used for charging, to use it as digital to analog converter, to access internal and memory and microSD, to connect some external digital to analog converter here. But the most interesting feature is that when you connect Quick Charge 3 or Power Drive 2, if I remember right, so fast chargers that supports modern protocols, you can activate special desktop mode when it's not powered by battery, and it means that in desktop mode it will just save the battery and it will serve you much longer, so you can use it with external power supply. And also in that mode you can activate this extra level of gain, meaning more power. By default you're getting like 360 milliwatts for 32 ohms load in single-ended mode and 990 milliwatts for 32 ohms load from balanced, and in that ultra high gain you're getting 1.2 watts from balanced output, so sometimes it can help squeeze more power from the source. On top we getting like 3.5mm Pentacon and 2.5mm balanced outputs. This time their surrounding is just black, not golden as it was before. And here is the volume control. It's not super tight, but not that easy to turn. So maybe in some cases it can be rotated, but when you use this case, I don't think it would be common. And if you still afraid that it can be rotated, just use these two buttons. So let's activate the screen now. Is it the maximum level of brightness? Yep, at maximum level of brightness. Nice 5.5 inch screen, 720p, nice viewing angles, good colors. As usual, FiiO's traditional wallpaper with internal chip printed on it, but this time it's not like part of PCB, just some chip with fancy graphics around. And here is operation system based on Android 10, and we'll talk about that in next part. So about the firmware, let me try to make this part really short, or as short as possible. It won't be really short because I still have a lot of things to show you, but I won't be focusing on the FiiO player because I did that in many previous reviews, and like everyone can like just download it and install to own smartphone to get an idea of how it works. So it's Android 10 with Google Play Store enabled, with separate run ready mode, which is pretty good in my opinion, and with some audio related additions. So as usual, a lion's share of these additions available in this drop down. So mode selector, you can select Android mode with default launcher. Pure music mode is similar to the Android mode, but launcher will be replaced with FiiO music player, so no access to desktop, just more focus on the music itself. But it doesn't affect sound, it's not like sound more pure than it is. Of course, in the Android incorporated special system that allows applications to bypass mixer and output high resolutions. Also you can select USB digital to analog converter mode, Bluetooth receiver mode and AirPlay. So I don't know why they didn't add here RON mode, but still pretty good results compared to different toggles that we've got in past players. And other part of controls are located here. So in settings you get the same mode choose, but it's not that interesting. So audio, here we can select phone out and line out for 3.5 and 4.4mm outputs. And actually we can also change the settings here. Now we have 4 levels of gain, but with external power supply there will be 5. Balanced and line output, so we can toggle here, is it line out or headphones out. Also run mode, auto DSD upsampler. Actually it improves a bit sound on both on deeper bass and highest treble, but at the same time it consumes battery noticeably. But if you're going to use desktop mode with external power supply, you can easily activate this feature to get more fun from sound. Also you can select should volume be adjusted by knob or by buttons. In vehicle mode, dark sim, night light and rotate screen, so that's all pretty traditional. And these settings duplicated here. SPDIF mode out, DSD over PCM or DSD to PCM. Gain, low pass filter, all available options for the new Sabres. Then what chip you'd like to use for Bluetooth, so cancel. Also quality level for the LDAC and HDC modes. You can select what you desire, better connection quality or better sound quality. Also, should Bluetooth volume be synced with system volume or should it be separate? It depends on your headphones you use and other stuff. Channel balance, also auto DSD upsampler. Should volume be adjustable on the line out? And the second harmonic regulation, it's actually a good feature added here. And now we even have this illustration. So at level 0 we have less second harmonics, at level 1 more, and at level 2 even more. And actually it works pretty, like, I want to say pretty good. But actually results are not like night and day difference, but it's pretty good in taming treble if you'd like to get more softer sound and you have some bright records or some sharp headphones. It compensates that nicely without distorting audio quality, but just became sounding less energetic in the treble area. So in my opinion, it's kind of good feature to have. Also here is display parameters, like display sample rate, dark sim actually looks also pretty good. Indicator light control, there are a lot of options like how this indicator light should behave. So for now I think it with brightness, with volume level, and if I turn it to 0 it's all totally dark. Night light, wallpaper, screen timeout, so that's more like typical Android settings. And some extra settings here in the global. System navigation by gesture or with these buttons. And here what we can select for this multifunction button. Not like super useful features in my opinion, but actually switch songs randomly can be nice sometimes. If you don't like what you listen now, select something else and actually use it to choose mode is also a nice idea. So if you press it, here is mode selector similar to one we have in the R7. So also power off timers, maximum volume level, in vehicle mode, volume adjustment, hold switch settings, what should be working and what should not. I really like this level of granular controls. Double tap screen to wake up, you can turn it off to save a bit of battery or turn on to get more comfort. And here is run and desktop mode. So because it's a new feature, actually FiiO added, like previously for desktop mode and ultra high gain level you had to adjust external power supply, but here we just can connect power drive brick, which is smaller usually. So we connect it, in a few seconds player understood that we connected this mode, and here we can select ultra high mode with additional power and desktop mode with bypassing battery. So we can enable it right now, or I can ask to prompt this next time because it's convenient. And also we can activate desktop mode here, and now we've got this ultra high gain mode, as you can see it yourself. And of course main part is FiiO Music. They updating this player, adding new features, trying to turn it into more multifunctional media center, and I really like that idea, especially if you will be using this player in the desktop mode. But in general works pretty fast, really snappy interface, lack of some big errors, you know. It's good to live in that time when all companies already have polished their code bases. And of course about the sound. So if someone asked me to describe the sound of this player in short, I will say it's good. If someone wants like more expanded but short description, I'd say that it's in between M15 and M17. So if you heard that players, you can pretty much imagine how this one sound. So it's a bit more technical and detailed compared to the M15, and slightly less accenting tightness and impact on the sound that was typical to M15, at least to my ears. But at the same time it's not as monitoring as M17, giving you a bit more like type of sound that called musical. Musical, coherent and something like that. But let's now speak about everything step by step. So bass, you know, nowadays, I don't know, is it a sense to say that like bass is really detailed, it goes to maximum depth, it's well controlled, mostly uncolored, so like all the things that we expect from modern player, it's present here, and it has a really good impact, and sometimes it's even highlighting impact a little bit to make everything a bit more fun, but you know, it's really slight. I even won't call it a coloration, it's like a bit of added spice, but not more, not much. And it has good weight when it's present in the record, but of course it doesn't add any weight when it's not present in the record. And if you need some more weighty representation, of course it's a matter of selecting proper headphones or earphones. It's always like, you know, main coloration is better to do with headphones or earphones. And that gives you pretty universal low frequencies that will behave well with all genres of music without any particular preferences or demands. And that's what we can expect from the modern player, I think. So, first example, it's Diablo Swing Orchestra Gunpowder Chant. I like this track and I like instrument used here. It's didgeridoo or didgeridoo. Sorry, not sure about accent. Probably I should have googled that before, but like 3 or 4 years I use this track as an example and still haven't done that. I like this instrument. If I remember right, it's some it takes origin somewhere in the Oceania region or somewhere around Australia islands, and it's really like, I can't say fun, but it's really pleasant, at least to my ears. It's my type of ASMR. It's low frequencies, really complex low frequencies with transitions, with changes and so on. Really unusual sounds that rarely met in real life, and it suits well to heavy metal music sometimes, like here for the Diablo Swing Orchestra, or for example great German band Rage used it on their album 13, but I think it's underestimated for heavy metal genre. And here it's a good example of really technical low frequencies that this player can deliver, because it sounds with good sense of realism. And second example, have I pressed the button or not? So it's Ghost, Mummy Dust, and if you heard Ghost, you know that they use like big drums. I'm not sure is it some kind of real big drums or it's some effect applied to regular drum kit, drum set. But like all kicks sound on their albums sound like mighty, powerful and big. but at the same time combined with like not superb record quality, this is pretty hard to render by a player. Not super hard, but sometimes some players failed here because you need to give listeners that sense of big impact, but at the same time separate it from other instruments and not overshadow the other instruments. And this player plays it as good as record allows it. So mid frequencies, like they are natural but not monitoring. They have really good resolution, but at the same time zero accent on the micro contrast. That means you will have all the details, but at the same time it's definitely not a player for those who like to enjoy tiniest nuances and small details. It's more musical, but not in sense like sometimes warmer sound called musical, when details are like smoothed and sometimes even lost, and some call it musical or analog, but here it's musical in terms that it gives you all music in whole. Of course you can separate each instrument, you can hear all of them, you can hear all their nuances, but it's not trying to focus on the tiniest details. Also, it has really good dynamics, so when record is done properly, it means that you'll get really good level of emotions, really great transitions. Also, it really well saturate vocals and instruments with weight when it's necessary, but for all of that required some really good records, some good remasters and all that stuff, but probably it's something you should expect buying players that cost $1,000. I still remember the times where $1,000 players were non-existent, because the most expensive player we have was Hi-Fi Man 801, and it cost like $700, and it was crazy expensive at that time. That was a really great times. But from another hand, we have so many great features and so many choice. So also current times are also great in terms of portable audio development, not in all aspects, of course. So before examples, of course, let's speak about the imaginary stage. I really like how it builds stage both in width and in depth. Width is slightly bigger than depth, but for depth I like the proper layers separation. They are not totally separated, but at the same time they transition one to each other in a really natural way. And width also, it's good, it's big when it's necessary, but it's not trying to exaggerate it. I really like that when we listen to some big orchestra, stage will be really wide, with good record, of course. But with, for example, rock band, they're not trying to create the stage similar to the orchestra like some player does. It's just not fitting that music, and it sounds a bit off. So here you'll get not necessary amount of stage, but closer to what it should be in a real life. Let's proceed to examples. So first example, it's Left Alone, Leïla Martial, and here this depth layering really came to help, because it has good depth layering. Accompanying instruments are a bit on the background, but not like shadowed or totally lost, but at the same time Leïla's vocal moved forward and it allows it to shine even more. And taking into account that this player also really good with representing emotions with good records, and this record is really good, it will give you really good sense of realism and immersion in this really audiophilic track. And second example is just absolute classic that everyone's like. It's Killer Queen by Queen, you got it. And it's filled with all that with all that marbles, all that bijoux that Queen saturated their music. Emotional vocal of Mercury, good accompaniment, interesting arrangement, nice chorus, lyrics. You know, you heard Queen, you love it, so no sense in describing it. And this player delivers it really nicely with highlighted emotions, with good stage to enjoy all that effects that they put in this track. So really enjoyable experience too. And the treble, it's also like linear, uncolored, has maximum extension with pretty good layering, unless you compare it to M17 of course, and that gives you a good sense of airiness and realism and overtone saturation, all you expect from the treble in general. It doesn't sound fatiguing, but at the same time it doesn't try to soften treble or hide it, so if you're sensitive to treble, that feature with the second harmonic actually not compensation, like I don't know, boosting can be really helpful because it helps to tame treble a little bit. For example, with Iron Maiden's Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, that is recorded pretty brightly with bright earphones like FiiO FD7 for example, or Moondrop KXXS, that second harmonic enhancer really gives nice results in terms of taming that sharp sibilance in the chorus. So, examples for the treble. First one, it's Dancing in Heaven by Robert Plant, and this track is filled with different instruments that goes to the treble area. Plant's vocal that goes also to the treble area with a lot of overtones and emotions put in it, and even guitars at the beginning that starts with giving you that sense of airiness, and that's all require good treble performance because treble is saturated, really rich with different things, and this player delivers it pretty well. And the final track, of course it also filled with interesting things in the treble area like orchestra and vocal overtones, and this player represents that all, but you know, this track to me is like quintessence of best sides of this player, or quintessence of things that allows to demonstrate that. You know, this player is really good with epic music. To my ears, you know, it's impossible to give you the sense of epicness with dry and monitoring sound. You don't get the music in the whole, and that lose that effect of really impressive big arrangement, orchestral part, chorus, and so on and so forth. So this player is really good with sense of epicness, and this track, as well as any other from the James Bond soundtracks, requires that epic effect, and this player gives that. Speaking about the pairings, it's really universal. It behaves really well with in-ear monitors, but with sensitive ones you'll need to reduce gain to the lower one. Because with medium you'll get a bit of background noise, with high gain you'll get a pretty noticeable amount of background noise. But just keep gain to minimum and it will be good, even for example with Solaris. And with full-size headphones, absolutely zero problems, except like few models that require big desktop amplifiers. We all know that models, I probably don't need even to name them now. And that desktop mode with extra level of gain is really good with tough to drive headphones, because you'll get better control, more precision, better dynamics, and it really boosts the effect. But it doesn't give that big effect with not that tough to drive models. Speaking about the comparisons, first let's position it in the FiiO's own lineup. So compared to M15, this one is more technical with better refined treble and with a bit less colored sound. Compared to M17, compared to this player, gives you more technical representation, better dynamics, and even better treble development, so it's a step up. FiiO M11 Plus ESS, here you'll get better refinement of the bass details and also better defined treble and bit more dynamic mid frequency, so also like more high-end experience you'll get here. What we've got else? Shanling M7, it's, Shanling, it's more weighty with more experiments with additional weight or additional worms, and it's really different. All three top iBasso players, I mean DX240, DX300 and DX320, I don't say that they are all the same, but compared to this player, those three are more focused on the micro contrast and more natural. Same applies to the Aston Kern Can Max. It's also more focused on the micro contrast, more drier and monitoring. Hibi RS6, more warmer and more like more multi-beat with more highlighted emotions, different overtone saturation, so it's really different experience in terms of listening in general. And main competitor of Hibi, I mean R6 Pro 2, I still didn't get it, but it will be really main competitor because in terms of specs and design it's a really promising player, and taking into account pretty aggressive pricing that Hibi decided to take, it will be really interesting player, I really hope. So it was FiiO M15S, really good player with good sound, totally matching its price, and with a lot of interesting good features like that desktop mode with extra power, great accessory set, nice design, and so on. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and of course have a nice day.